Joining us now is Dr. Jamie Taweel, an internal medicine specialist from Grand River Medical Associates, to talk to us about COVID-19, the upcoming flu season, and more. Dr. Taweel, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me as always. How are we doing?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Oh, getting there, slowly but surely.
And we're heading into the flu season. People are starting to get their flu vaccines. Last season, the flu season wasn't really as severe as it's been before. We really didn't hear a whole lot about the flu being a problem at all. This year, likely to be a different case because we don't have the mask mandates in place in most places. We do in our schools, and some individual businesses and other places do have their regulations in place, but generally speaking, we don't. There's less social distancing that's being encouraged or enacted at this moment in time. So are you expecting to see a significant uptick in flu cases this season?
Yeah, actually I am. There's been, we've basically been in lockdown last year. And last year, anytime anyone had flu symptoms, they just got tested for COVID only because things were so spooky at the time. But this year, I think we're going to start expanding a little bit, start testing for flu as appropriate in addition to COVID. But also, yes, social distancing is no longer as stringent as it was last year. Masks are becoming relaxed and things to that effect. So I think and people have been a little bit more, because they've been locked up, are a little bit more susceptible to these things. So I think the flu virus is going to be a little bit more significant this year, certainly more so than last year, and quite potentially worse than it was in the previous years.
We're joined by Dr. Jamie Taweel, internal medicine specialist at Grand River Medical Associates, with us on the MegaCast. So as people are going and getting their flu vaccines, they're also still continuing to get their COVID-19 vaccines, some getting their booster shots. Are they able, we've heard in some cases that people are being encouraged. I know that in the case of someone in my family recently, they went to go get their flu shot, and they were encouraged to also get their booster shot at that time. What's your take on people getting vaccinated for COVID and for the flu at the same time? Is this a good option, or should people taper those a little bit, one from the other?
I guess it kind of depends. It is certainly okay to do that if that's something you'd like to do. Just bear in mind a couple of things. Number one, you're going to feel probably a little bit more, as your body mounts that immune response, you are going to feel pretty wiped out. So that, you got to expect that a little bit. Some people would just rather have it all at once as opposed to staggering it and feeling miserable for periods of time. You should be feeling a little bit fatigued, achy over the next couple of days. So some people would rather just have that all at once as opposed to, again, staggering it. The other thing is if you do have any side effects, you want to make sure that it's kind of difficult to attribute which side effects go to which vaccine if you get them at the same time. Again, it is okay to do that, and it is recommended in some circles. I have no problem with it, and if someone wants to do that, I tell them that it's definitely something that they can do and shouldn't be an issue.
We're joined by Dr. Jamie Taweel, internal medicine specialist at Grand River Medical Associates, with us today on the MegaCast, and we're getting closer to a point where we're going to be having COVID-19 vaccine available for children below the age of 12 years old. Currently, it's available for ages 12 and up if they're getting the Pfizer or BioNTech vaccine. Soon we have both Moderna and Pfizer vaccines that are looking to have boosters available, but also the Pfizer vaccine, in a 17-0 vote in FDA expert panel on Tuesday, recommended that the COVID-19 vaccine for children's ages 5 to 11. So for parents that have children in that age group, what should they be doing in terms of preparing their kids to get vaccinated? Because this is a younger age group, and this kind of vaccine process, it's outside of their regular youth vaccinations that they get before they're going into school in some cases, and this is a different situation as well, and they can have some side effects. How should they be preparing their kids for this shot?
Well, first and foremost, let's realize that this was just the FDA recommended panel, and it does not necessarily mean that it has gone into practice yet. And the FDA may choose to ignore this advice. It kind of all depends. So before that goes into place, we have to make sure that the FDA actually approves that. And that being said, it's assumed that they do, because they typically follow the recommendations of the FDA expert panel. It's not much unlike any other vaccine that children get. They are to be prepared for that, in a sense that they are going to experience a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of, local reaction at the site that they get the vaccine, but also they're going to feel a little bit, just pretty much fatigued for the next couple of days. Some people have been reporting some significant reactions, being out of commission, so to speak, for a couple of days. But I think the preparation for the vaccine should be no different than any other vaccine that children receive. And children are typically more resilient as well. They tend to do a little bit better. They do get a little bit feverish, a little bit fatigued, but they bounce back quickly. So hopefully will be the similar scenario.
We're joined by Dr. Jamie Taweel from Grand River Medical Associates on the MegaCast. And on the vaccine topic, boosters are available now. They are they're available by almost every manufacturer at this time. Should people, if they have gotten a vaccine from one manufacturer versus the other, should they, while these vaccine boosters are being proposed and as they become available, should they be looking to get the booster shot from the same manufacturer as they got their first shot or their first two shots in the case of Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, or should they be open to getting the booster shots from another manufacturer should they be available?
So the top health experts have recommended that it is okay to get vaccines from other manufacturers, and they feel that it might actually improve their ability to resist the COVID-19 virus. However, there's also if you look into it, it can be the same thing. I mean, you can get the same vaccine, and it will definitely boost your immunity, but it is recommended or at least encouraged. At a minimum, it is allowed that you can mix and match. And so I think if I'm not incorrect, the people that received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine were encouraged to get another booster of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it was only one shot. But as far as getting the Pfizer or the Moderna, those can be mixed and matched, and it should not cause any significant problems, and it has been allowed. So it's not a big issue. I received the booster vaccine. I received the same one that I got from my initial 2 doses, but that was just a matter of scheduling. It's just what was available to me, and I was not going to worry if it was the Moderna versus the Pfizer. And I think it'll all do a pretty good job.
Going back to the flu season, but also still connected to the COVID-19 situation here in the state of Michigan, we're starting to see we've seen a reduction in overall cases in the last, overall average cases in the last update from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Some experts are saying that we're looking at maybe a potential for a beginning of a dip in this current surge of COVID-19 with the Delta variant. Others very cautious and saying it's really a maybe at this point, not a definitive yes or no. On the flu front, flu season just coming in, what should we be doing right now in order to prevent sort of a twin-demic to come into play in this year? Which we heard a lot about that that buzzword last year going into flu season, didn't really come to bat. But this year, given the circumstances and what we've already discussed on flu, what should we be doing in order to prevent something like that from being a problem?
I mean, ultimately, last year seemed to have proven that, masks, social distancing, all of those things have actually worked quite well. We had a pretty low incidence of the flu last year, and hopefully we can do that again this year. So I'm hoping that people will just continue to maintain their contact precautions. Masks are definitely not required, but certainly encouraged, specifically in bigger areas. I think that some of it's just going to be, unfortunately, unavoidable. As the world moves on, we're going to get those things, and people are going to get sick with other things. We're seeing an increase in RSV this year, which is pretty significant. We're seeing a lot of other things as well. So I think we're going to just have to try our best and try, hopefully do well and encourage both the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine. They will help. So I'm definitely optimistic that those will improve our outcomes as well. In addition to just, again, I think the world's changed for the better. I think a lot of people are, even though they're not going to be wearing masks in public as aggressively as they were, I think we as a people have been changed to a degree where now social distancing and doing those things and hand washing and all of those things are really helping along. So I'm optimistic, but at the same time, some of it's just going to be unfortunately unavoidable, and we're going to do the best we can, and health professionals will be there for us.
Dr. Jamie Taweel joins us from Grand River Medical Associates. He's an internal medicine specialist over there with us today on the MegaCast. And Dr. Taweel, at this time, outside of COVID-19 and the flu front, are there any common issues or common concerns that we're seeing out in our community here or across the board medically that people should be on the outlook for, things that people should be more aware of going forward?
Yeah, actually, a couple of things. First and foremost, COVID's still a big deal, and I'm seeing a big uptick lately. I've been seeing a lot of people just getting COVID. I do see a lot of people that have been vaccinated getting COVID, but they've been milder cases, thank the Lord. So I think that's a good thing. But also, one thing I'm also catching up on is a lot of preventative testing. A lot of the patients that I'm seeing in the office are patients that I haven't seen in over a year that just did not want to come into the office, or either doing telehealth, so they were unable to get their required preventative testing, mammograms, colonoscopies, diabetic checks, things like that need to just get done. So I don't want that to slip by the wayside, because people are now starting to kind of come out of the woodworks. And here I am looking at their charts and going, oh, it's been over a year since you've been evaluated. We need to get our routine physicals. We need to make sure that we're not going to get, sidelined by some major health issue that could have been prevented. So I'm encouraging people to try their hardest to make sure that they're getting all of their preventative testing done, make sure that they're still continuing to do their things, check their blood pressure, check their, make sure they're not diabetic, check their cholesterol, liver, kidneys, all the fun stuff. That kind of keeps people ticking, and I think that they should continue to do that.
Dr. Taweel, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today.
As always, thank you so much for having me.